Hey, I am Sam Pierce. Some of you know me as Renegade Soul 216. Some of you just know me as Sam. Some of you actually only know me as Samantha. I don't go by Samantha. Only people that have known me for a very long time call me Samantha. But my reason for coming to you today is I wanted to talk to you a little bit about grief. Yeah, you heard me right, grief. So if you know me as Renegade Soul, then you know me as a personal trainer. Kind of wild, kind of crazy, but I mean, we get these results. So important to note though that had it not been for my grief journey, there would be no Renegade Soul 216. There would be no personal training and helping of other people. And let me explain what I mean by that. I had a set of twins, Christian and Jaden, and they passed away at birth. They were born too soon. They were born at 21.6 weeks. They didn't have the option of living. Their lungs were not developed. This was over 12 years ago. At the time, I worked in a nonprofit world. I was educated. I had health insurance. The pregnancy was planned. I was married. In fact, he worked for the hospital system in which we delivered. And so we had all the best medical care. We were poster children for having healthy babies. But we lost anyway. And I learned an important lesson. I learned that infant mortality was a thing in my community. It was the worst kept secret. Like, why didn't I know this? And it's huge in the Black community, but I didn't know this. I learned too that what I do in childhood affects what happens to me in adulthood. And I think, when you say it, you're like, of course, but I don't think it hits you until you start losing babies. So we lose Christian and Jaden. My world changes because then we turned around and we got pregnant again and had another set of twins. That is Caden and Cameron, and they are now 11 years old. Healthy babies, but we had to do something different when we got pregnant with them. We had to totally turn around how we played out this pregnancy, and that got them here. But in turn, my focus in life really did change, So now my focus is several things, right? After Christian and Jaden passed away, we had to go get some grief therapy. And very important, another family, really good friends of ours, had to come over to tell us where to go. And my friend's husband, a Black man, had to say to my husband, another Black man, hey, you need to go get some counseling too, and you need to go with your wife, as a matter of fact. And so that was a very important, in our community, that is huge. We're not going to just go do something. We need somebody to vouch for this because we don't trust therapy as a community. I think we're getting better now, but especially even, 10, 12 years ago, we were still like, I'm not going for what are you talking about? They'll never label me. So we went through that. So we have gone through different stages of therapy. In fact, we've done group therapy, we've done phototherapy, we've done all the different therapies until we got to grief recovery. The grief recovery method, I think, and I'm sure my husband would probably agree, was the most thorough of the grief work that we've done thus far. So again, working through all of that grief, understanding then how health disparities, how social determinants of health, how working out and fixing things like blood pressure, stress relief, those types of things, how that affects birth outcomes and other health metrics, by the way. But, my focus was birth outcomes. How this affects what happens in our everyday life, is how Renegade Soul was birthed. And because now I have this focus of social determinants of health and physical personal training and, birth outcomes ultimately is my goal, but it's all interrelated. And so you have to touch every part of the person. It's a real holistic approach, So when I got to Grief Recovery Method and had the opportunity to become a specialist, it was a no-brainer for me, because now I can help people through the grief journey, because everything that we thought we knew about grief is not necessarily true. And we say things and we do things that just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't help us. So, when we are thinking that there are stages of grief, right? It leaves you with this thought that if I go, let's just say there are 13 stages of grief, right? If there are 13 stages of grief and I hit all 13, then I'm supposed to be healed from my grief. That's what that kind of implies. And that's not true. So, and case in point, and I just want to put it out there, I got dead babies. And so you're telling me that if I go through these 13 stages of grief, that I'm not going to miss my babies no more? That's not true. And it could never be true. So I just wanted to say that, when we're doing this grief work together, how important it is to do the grief work. It's hard work. We don't want to touch that. We don't want to look back at our, young adulthood, at things that we did before, and try to understand why we are the way that we are today. But it's very important for healing. We were not given the tools at a young age to work things out. We were not. We were given lies. You ever listen to that song Fairy Tales by Anita Baker? Same thing. Now the fantasy is over. This is how I felt when Christian and Jaden died. Hey, the fantasy is over. I got to figure out how to live now. And this is a big part of it, which is why I'm like, yeah, you got to do this grief recovery method, because it's the most thorough. It's definitely going to walk through life pinpointing places where grief began for you. And we all are grievers. 100% of us are grievers. Whether it's a 2-year-old whose goldfish died, and we give the 2-year-old the wrong tools, immediately we'll get you another goldfish. What is the message there that they're going to carry out throughout life? Oh, replace the loss. No, but we don't think about it like that. We just trying to appease this 2-year-old, but really what you've done is given this 2-year-old the wrong tool to carry out throughout his or her life. We're not thinking like that. And it's time we start thinking like that. It's time we start pulling ourselves out of this and start to actually heal. So, yeah, I am talking to you about grief because I go through a lot of grief. And I'm very verbal about my grief. I use working out as a way to work through my grief. It is a stress reliever for me, but I get massive results because I just choose to apply myself in that way. But to each his own. I am now a grief recovery method specialist, and we are holding classes coming up soon, always. And now they're online. But what do people grieve? So some people come to me and they say, well, I don't think grief recovery applies to me because I haven't lost anyone important. And it's like, yeah, but grief comes from loss of a lot of people, pets, and intangible things like loss of trust. Have you ever been cheated on and it turned your world upside down? Loss of normality. Did you go through COVID like I did? Where they shut us down and made us stay in the house? We couldn't leave. We couldn't go into the stores. We couldn't go to a restaurant. Like, that's loss. That's loss. That's huge loss. We are 100% grievers, every last one of us. And we can all benefit from grief recovery method. So I invite you to my website, thecjp.org, where you can look at the grief recovery information on there and get to know me a little bit better, and our story about Christian and Jaden, and how the CJP is the Christian Jaden Project, and how we began this work. Because even though they lived for about an hour, they totally changed me and my family. They gave me purpose, and I intend to carry that out. So join us for Grief Recovery Method. And if you have any questions, just let me know. And we can walk through the journey together. That's what I'm here for, apparently. Sometimes God has a different, path for you. And, the sooner you can get to okay, this is where I'm supposed to go, I think the better off we all are. So I will be talking to you soon.